I wanted to start with something I found pretty inspiring and unexpected. Last month we had Senator Brian Schatz on campus for an RCUH forum at UH Mānoa, and he talked a little bit about the university. We were one of his first jobs out of school. His father was a really beloved faculty member in JABSOM, but I just wanted to share this 30-second clip with his perspective on how public policy makers should think about the University of Hawaii.
First, it is important for public leaders to sing the praises of the university system, especially in a political and media environment that seems to reward heads on spikes. So, allow me to shout this from the rooftops. The University of Hawaii system is excellent. It is a source of pride and intellectual and cultural vitality, and while oversight is appropriate and continuous improvement is necessary, we gain nothing by tearing down one of our most important institutions.
We have the whole video if anybody wants. He talked for about 40 minutes. It was actually a great session, but that was my favorite part. So I'm a big NPR junkie, and as they say, by the numbers. When you listen to Marketplace, it's a little early to predict enrollment. I think we only vary by personality and how optimistic we are. And if we're only a little optimistic, some people like to remain pessimistic, but that's not me. But the numbers are looking good for UH Mānoa to increase again. I think we have turned the tide, and we're also looking good for Hilo to increase the first time in 7 years, barring another eruption or other natural disaster. Right now, Manoa is up 5% for new freshmen. New students are up overall by 3%, so that includes the new transfer students. Our opening enrollment right now is up about 6.7% compared to last year, and I will say we have a culture in which all of our chancellors are watching these numbers, if not daily, certainly weekly. Nothing is guaranteed. We're still way out from fall, but this is a lot better than if the numbers were down. I'll just also note that we use these numbers to diagnose problem areas. And one of the ones that we're still trying to get our heads around and address is our difficulty transferring students from our community colleges to our universities. That continues to be a challenge for us, and I'll mention a couple things we're doing. Similarly, our extramural funding for the system is still more than 10% ahead of last year, which was a little bit of growth over the previous year. So on those two major metrics, we're going in the right direction. I don't know if Vasilis is here to guarantee we'll go over 400 million this year, but we're looking pretty good. The only times we were over that were really during the stimulus era. I want to highlight two interesting grants and scholarship programs that are helping us address educational need in our community. One is a $418,000 grant from the ECMC Foundation, and this is to P20, and this is to help us develop online early college courses for rural areas. So one of the challenges we have with our early college program is if a school doesn't have enough students in a particular course to fill a class, it doesn't really make sense to offer that class in person at the school. So bringing this around to online, particularly for rural areas, and we are looking at CTE programs as well. I'll give you one example. I visited Lanai earlier this month, and they have programs where they need 3 people to learn something that they need on the island, and that's very difficult to scale. And if those students leave the island, there's a good chance they won't come back. So that's some of what we're trying to help with, so we're very grateful to them. A second really interesting gift was from Coca-Cola, and they offered us $95,000 for a scholarship program at Manoa to enable first-generation students to access, persist, and succeed in higher education, which is a pretty interesting and broad opportunity, something we care deeply about. And credit to Assistant Vice Chancellor Roxy Shabazz, who came up with the idea of using this to address that very problem I mentioned. So this, along with $50,000 of UH internal scholarship funding, will be dedicated to support transfer student scholarships. And this is particularly important while we're in this situation where our community college students are eligible for Hawaii Promise funds, but our university students are not. So we hope this is the kind of thing that can help with that transition as well. We are also focused on our online degree programs, our UH Online. I think we had a presentation prepared for ASA a couple meetings ago, but never quite got to it. It was a busy agenda that day. But I will say our accelerated Associate of Arts degree is going gangbusters. We thought we would start slowly this year, and demand was about triple what we identified for the first cohort. So we are both scaling up and expanding to new degree programs. This fall we'll be starting an online Bachelor of Social Work, and next up we're looking at an interdisciplinary baccalaureate in social sciences, and we're also looking at CTE opportunities. These are unique programs. You've heard about them from some of the faculty on campuses. We are going with cohorts with 5-week courses, and these are targeted for returning adults. And the idea is that they take one class at a time so they can fully focus for 5 weeks, and then they go on to the next course. And we got the idea from other places that have been successful, and it's working quite well here as well. Some of the regents had asked about our indirect cost rates, and again, this is something that Vice President Sirmos can report on to R&I, but since it's timely, I do want to report that we're expecting within the next 2 weeks to receive our new indirect cost rate agreement from the federal government. We get it from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Our on-campus rate will increase from 41.5% to 45%, 45.5% over a multi-year period. That's an increase of 4%. That's a wonderful thing for us. That's about as high as you can get. It is certainly the highest increase we've ever received. And similar kinds of increases at Kaka'ako and off campus as well. This increases our indirect cost return, which results in increased availability of RTRF, our Research and Training Revolving Fund, which is our primary source of investment in new research programs, startup funds for our faculty, and other strategic opportunities. There's been a fair amount of press of late regarding the DOE adopting some new construction practices quite effectively. They called it job order contracting. And I just wanted to make sure that the regents understand this is exactly the same technique that Vice President Gouveia has previously briefed you on when we've talked about the many improvements that we've made in our construction practices, including online systems for managing change orders, moving to design build. We use different terminology. We've called it IDIQ contracts, which is the same concept. The idea is you enter into one competitive contract, and then you can award individual tasks for projects without going out to bid every time. We've been learning to get our feet wet with this, but I just want to quickly update you that we have entered into 11 IDIQ contracts. One of them has already closed out. 2 new ones are in process. That has resulted in 39 work orders so far. It's only about $1.5 million. But as we have learned to do this, we'll be moving more aggressively into using it for more of our major operations and maintenance programs. Lots of benefits to this. We get work out faster. We save time. We save cost on procurement as well. And we can work more closely with vendors who then learn our environment over a period of time in which they might have multiple roofing contracts, multiple air conditioning repair contracts, multiple elevator repair contracts, or so forth. It also helps us with budgeting because we have fixed price costing for these projects that last over the duration of the IDIQ contract. A couple of committee meetings ago, the All-Campus Council of Faculty Senate chairs reported on the faculty morale survey that the administration administers for them. There was some interest by Regents in follow-up. I want to report that Regent Portnoy and I actually spent a delightful 2 hours with the ACCFSC last month. It was their last meeting of the year. We wanted to follow up on this item, which was of interest to the board. They had agreed they would parse the data down campus by campus, which then will let every chancellor look at it and work with their faculty. They have not yet done that. They still seem interested. They did note they have some small sample size issues in some cases. Dr. Sorensen is quite an expert at this, so I'm confident that when she gives us data, it will be data that represents fairly what was done with that survey. They have also not yet provided any recommendations to their campuses, to the administration. Regent Portnoy asked if they had suggestions for the board on how to improve things. And other than all of us talking about improving communication, there wasn't much specific. And I will note that they did confirm that concerns about bullying, which were one of the top and I think for a lot of us among the most disturbing, they felt that that was primarily a reflection of concerns about faculty treatment of other faculty. So that's something we're going to have to work with pretty holistically with them as a community. You likely saw something in the news about 2 weeks ago about a new program that will provide down payment assistance for DOE employees. Calbert and I met yesterday with the representative of that company. They are willing to extend that program to UH employees as well. I've initiated a discussion with Chris Hanselman, I see sitting there, of UPA. I think you saw HSTA weigh in with a column in Civil Beat on the program. HGA is also, because this would be for all employees, not just faculty, and I also checked in with HGA. So that may be something we'll be announcing imminently, but I think we would characterize it as a tool that may be of use to some of our employees in certain conditions, and it's certainly not going to solve the broad challenges that we all face with affordability of housing for our education workforce in the state. Another bit of happy news, you will recall when we were going through the parking rate increase discussions that there was significant concern raised at multiple meetings about the loss of parking in Kaka'ako and the impact on students in particular there. I want to thank in particular Vice President Okinaga, Vice President Young. They managed to engineer a multi-party deal to get back about 100 parking spaces through a relationship with both the city and county and HCDA, and we will have those back in place at roughly the same rate as our new parking rates. So that's quite an accomplishment, and that will take the pressure off us, certainly for the time being. I will give a quick update on the Manoa reorg activities. You asked me to do that every month to make sure we stay on track. The testimony from Jim Sean was pretty comprehensive, and rather than answer all of his questions, Michael Bruno did reach out to him directly, and they are planning to schedule a time for the two of them to talk to answer at least 9 of his questions. The last one was not for him. For us. But we have formed 5 working groups for phase 2. Each of those have 2 co-leaders. Each of those have an executive sponsor, either Provost Bruno or myself. We have met with the leadership of those committees, and each of them is now figuring out whether they will convene with one big bang meeting. My 2 co-chairs decided they actually want to go on a listening tour of each of their committee members before they call the first meeting. So we are not prescribing a particular method. The time frame is pretty clear, though. We want to have possible org charts and functional statements by early in the fall, ideally the end of December, so these groups will be working over the summer. We would then go through informal consultation on those org charts and functional statements during the fall with the goal to have formal organizational proposals available for formal consultation at the beginning of the spring with the goal of implementing phase 2 in July.
said the goal was for the working groups to complete by the end of December. Do you want to correct that? We really needed some, if they're going to go for consultation.
The informal, so the, I'm sorry, the org charts and functional statements by the end of September, for informal consultation by the end of December, which will then allow us to have the formal proposals for spring.
Thank you.
Sorry if I mixed up my ember months. I think I'll leave the rest of this for a conversation with John and Jim Sean, unless anybody has questions. We have another set of reorganizations going on that I have mentioned in the past. Tim Scheidler, that consultation is still underway. Interestingly, the Manoa Faculty Senate Committee on Administration on Budget supported that one with reservations, but the full Faculty Senate asked to defer it pending a survey of the TIM faculty, which turns out to be around 10 people, which doesn't take that long to survey. So we're trying to bring that together to keep it on track for timely conclusion. We are also completing consultation with the unions as well. They've asked for a little bit of extra time. We are also continuing with the language, linguistics, literature, arts and humanities and SPAs. This one is encountering some additional resistance to change. I will just emphasize that we are not picking this up just because they're small and having enrollment problems. There is a strategic purpose, which is to craft a very strong arts and sciences capacity at UH Mānoa with our Asia Pacific strength and expertise at its core. And we think bringing these three together, integrating language and culture with our Asia Pacific core expertise will create great strength for UH Mānoa and really help us emphasize the arts and humanities and languages, which have all been experiencing shrinking enrollment. Just a couple of updates on searches as well. I think you all know that Avi Soifer, one of our longest serving deans, announced his intent to retire. Noreen Mokuau, Dean of the Myron B. Thompson School of Social Work, has agreed to chair that search committee. They are actually having their first meeting today, and the full committee will be announced tomorrow. And Avi has agreed to stay on, assuming we complete this in a timely manner, until we finish. I have also received recommendations from the campus governance groups on the 7 community colleges. Believe it or not, we have never searched for a vice president for community colleges before. So this is the first time. We've only had 2 people in this job for about the last 30 or more years, I think. So we are forming a real search committee, and hopefully we'll be announcing that next week. I will say that I'm very happy that the co-chairs have agreed. I asked, both agreed to serve. That'll be Vice President Don Straney and Chancellor Louis Hokoana from Maui. It seems like everything's in flux, but when we talked about the Maunakea rules, Regent Sullivan asked me about changes to the structure, and I wanted to give you an update on that again. This month I met with both the Maunakea Observatory directors and the Maunakea Management Board. Thank you, Regent Nahalea and Higaki, who participate in the Maunakea Management Board. I shared the 4 ideas in more detail that I had talked about with you earlier in the month. One is bringing together the Office of Maunakea Management and the Maunakea Support Services and beginning to build in a new capacity around culture and education into a unified structure for our stewardship of Maunakea, which is currently disparate in different parts of the university. I talked about the concept of appointing a chair of the Maunakea Management Board as a university executive who would also directly oversee our entire enterprise for stewardship of Maunakea across the entire University of Hawaii. I talked about bringing Imiloa in as a full partner in our work and stewardship as the way of addressing the areas of culture and education that we have not focused on historically in our stewardship programs. and I talked about making Maunakea, the Maunakea Management Board itself, more representative of our stakeholders. I would say the feedback was, in general, okay on all of this. The two items that raised the greatest concern, the Maunakea Management Board was not very excited about designating seats on that board that would be for specific stakeholders, like saying this person is the OHA representative, this person is the DLNR representative, this is the mayor's representative. They were extremely supportive of inviting input from all of those groups each and every time we make appointments. So that was excellent feedback, and I think it's another way of trying to accomplish the same goal. The other, I think, significant concern came from the Maunakea Observatory directors. They are quite happy with the way the Maunakea Support Service program is working under the leadership of the Institute for Astronomy. They are quite concerned at a change that might impact the services which they do pay for. So I think we have some work to do to ensure that we don't break anything that's working while moving to a more streamlined and integrated structure. So it was a day well spent on Hawaii Island. We can address this through bylaws changes, which are under the authority of the Maunakea Management Board. And all of this is part of the work that is fully integrated with the work we're doing to update the Maunakea Master Plan, the updates to the Comprehensive Management Plan, and the EIS that we are beginning the work on for a new master lease to extend astronomy on Mauna Kea past 2033. Just a couple more items. I did share with the Regents information about the Daniel K. Inouye College of Pharmacy. I didn't want anyone surprised, but there has been chatter, particularly on the UH Hilo campus. I will simply say here today that the financial model when the school was established was predicated on enrollment at a certain level with a certain mix between resident and non-resident students. It was an excellent idea. In fact, it was such an excellent idea that universities all over the country had the same idea. And we built our College of Pharmacy at the same time a glut of pharmacy schools went up around the country. And we are now seeing the impact of that on our enrollment. We are not in a place of danger, and I really want to thank Dean Ma and Chancellor Sakai for their work to catch this before it became a huge financial problem. That's the benefit of having a business professor and former vice president or vice chancellor for administration and finance as the chancellor, that as soon as things start to look problematic, they've jumped on it and are dealing with it. Some of it is reducing costs, and we are also looking at how to structure the program, and they brought in one expert consultant from the accreditation organization, and that person has recommended a blue ribbon team. What I will note, and you were briefed by Amy Grace on our U Healthy program, but one of the ways these things fit together is thinking about the role of pharmacists in our whole healthcare ecosystem in Hawaii. That, for example, a new law passed this year that will allow pharmacists to give vaccinations. And that kind of thing changes the role of pharmacists in improving the health of our community. And those are things that we can embrace in our program so that our graduates can be of more help to our U Healthy Hawaii initiative. Men's volleyball captured the hearts and imaginations of the state, and I won't say much about it except it was really a treat to be a small part of the excitement. And I think Regent Ewan went to Long Beach for the national finals. It was a painful loss, but it was pretty wonderful to see the two best teams in the country fighting it out. It's a shame it was on someone else's home court, but so be it. They beat us fair and square. But I wanted to highlight something else about sports. I know a couple of you have seen us nibble around the edges of something called Esports, and I want to thank Regent Sullivan actually helped put this on my radar about a year ago. And Chris Lee of the System Academy for Creative Media sort of jumped in and helped kickstart it. But we have an amazing group of young people. So I know the stereotype is that this is just sweaty kids in their dorm rooms or somewhere playing games all day. And this is already about $1 billion industry, poised for rapid growth around competitive gamers who get paid to make money, broadcasters who get paid to make money, people who write games. There's color commentary of gaming. Everything you think of around sports is happening with this as a competitive activity. The Mountain West Conference, in which we play football, is starting an esports program. So this is just about a 1-minute clip. I want to thank the guy who's really led this for us is Sky Kauvaloa. He's a graduate student in actually the PhD program that John and I and Erica all graduated from. He's doing the first dissertation in the country on esports in academia. He's teaching an esports course, and he's our ringleader with his merry band of students. So 1 minute about their excitement about participating. Our claim to distinction is female participation in our competitive esports team. Very unusual.
My name is Christian Bakuro.
I am Nadia Boniza,
My name is Bryant.
and I am a player.
I'm a player.
And I am the coach for the University of Hawaii Overwatch Esports team. I just want to get into competitive esports.
I need to get on this team. I need to be a part of this.
I'm very excited to be the first ever team member.
It's a huge industry.
Trust the process.
We have an esports team at UH, and I'm a part of it. It's huge.
So with that, so let me thank, this is Marcia's last board meeting as chancellor. Our new chancellor will start July 1. Happily, Marcia is not leaving us. She's returning. Once long ago, she was a professor in business. So she's going to go back and she'll be helping Don Straney with a planning project, bringing her economic skills to the fore and helping us understand our financial viability. But it's also, it's John's, sorry.